All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How Shared Zaps Unlock the Power of Automation and Drive Revenue. I know you probably have a lot of things you could be doing with your time, so we really appreciate you spending it with us. And also love to see that we have people joining us from all over the world. Shout out, I saw someone in Idaho. That's where I am. So love to see that. My name's Katie, and I'm going to be moderating today's event. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So first of all, this webinar will be recorded, and you'll get an email with the recording afterwards. And all attendees are muted, but if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you put the questions in the chat box where everyone is putting where they're from, it'll probably get lost just due to the sheer amount of people on the call. So be sure to type it in the Q&A box, and we'll have Lori on our line from our support team. She's going to try her best to get to those during the webinar. And if not, we'll have time at the end of the webinar for Janan, Heather, and Lori to answer some of these questions live. So there'll also be a survey at the end of the webinar, and we'd love if you could fill it out and give us any feedback so that we can improve our future webinars. All right, so let's get started. I would like to introduce our speakers today. First, we have Janan Barge. Janan has been with Zapier for a year as the Zap Sharing Team's engineering manager. During that time, she's led the team's launch of link sharing and their current work on public sharing. She's also guided this team through developing prototypes of customized experiences, along with delivering high-quality features like the new shared Zaplander. We also have Heather Satterley joining us. Heather is a CPA and founder of Satterley Training and Consulting, a consulting firm focused on helping businesses define, design, and automate their processes. A champion for technology in the accounting world, Heather is an advanced certified pro advisor, member of the exclusive Intuit Trainer Writer Network, and a Zapier certified expert. Welcome, Heather. All right, so for those of you unfamiliar with Zapier, I just want to give you a brief overview. So what is Zapier? Zapier is a tool that allows you to connect your favorite web apps to each other and move information between them automatically. It allows you to forget the busy work of your life and focus on what really matters. You can connect apps like MailChimp, Gmail, Slack, or Salesforce. The list goes on. And since we work with more than 2,000 apps, there's a pretty good chance that you'll be able to find apps that you use every day and sync them up together. So what is Zap Sharing? Zap Sharing is just a simple way to share a copy of your favorite automated workflow with others who could basically use a productivity boost. And when you receive a shared Zap, you can set it up in just a few minutes so you can start saving time right away. So basically, sharing what you've created can save your coworkers or your clients even more time than they may already have by saving time using Zapier. That makes sense. For example, pretend that everyone on your team needs to submit a monthly report. If you have a Zap for automating that process, you can share a copy with your teammates so they can completely cut that work out of their day. It also helps you keep crucial work moving across your whole team. So all you have to do is just share a copy of the Zap that handles your process, and your teammates can customize it to fit their own workflows. All right, so with that, we're going to have Janan and Heather get a little more in depth on Zap sharing so you guys can learn a bit more and see how Heather uses Zaps on her day-to-day. So welcome, Janan and Heather.
Thanks, Katie. So let's jump right in, Heather. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself, how long you've been consulting, and what types of clients you work with?
Oh, absolutely. So I am a CPA, so I'm an accountant by trade, and I have been an accountant for a very long time. But I've been working with Zapier for the last 6 or 7 years, and I work with both accounting professionals, that's really my space, and small businesses that are looking for ways to automate their workflows and make their lives easier. So yeah.
Awesome. And can you let us know a little bit more about how you became a Zapier expert and how others might do so as well?
Absolutely. So I learned about Zapier initially from a friend of mine, and I was kind of sharing with him how I felt a little bit frustrated as an accounting professional that could see what needed to be done in my clients' workflows. But because I'm not a developer or a coder, I wasn't really able to make that happen for them. And, as an accountant, people think of us as doing a lot of paperwork and filling out a lot of forms. Well, that's super time consuming. So when we can find a way that makes that easier and a little more automated, we're all over it. Right. So anyway, he told me about Zapier and I immediately was intrigued with it, went home that very day, signed up for it, and made my first Zap. And within about 2 months, I had my first paid Zapier engagement where I was helping a client to build an automation using Zapier. So, getting started with it was really just getting in and learning about it, using the help resources on, in the Zapier blog and on the Zapier website, and then actually just getting in and tinkering with it to see what's possible and learn more about it.
Awesome. So diving into Zap sharing a bit more, how has it saved you time and let you do more of the work that matters most?
So it's a huge time saver for me because when I am sharing automations with clients or somebody has a question about how to automate something with Zapier, before I was able to share it, I would need to jump on a screen share with them, right? Or write out a very detailed email or do a video with instructions on how they can go through and create that automation. With Zap sharing, I can go in and very quickly design the Zap and then share a URL with them where they just basically add it to their own Zapier account, go connect their own accounts with whatever apps I'm using in the automation and make a couple of tweaks and they're good to go. So it saves me a ton of time because I no longer have to do those face-to-face engagements. It just makes it super, super fast and simple.
Great to hear that. And so we know that you're a Zapier expert, but what made you start using Zapier in the first place and how did you expand your knowledge?
Well, just like I said before, I had a friend introduce me to it. And after I was able to create that first automation, obviously I was hooked on it. So I do set time aside for myself every week to I call it tinker time. And so I go in and I try out new technology, I try out new workflows and try to figure out ways to make my job easier and make my life better. So that's how I did it. Is you really, the best way to become a Zapier expert is to use it and start to think about where you are seeing redundancies in your own life and in your own workflow. Where are you entering the same data in more than one place? What are the steps that you're going through? And you find that you have a lot of repeatable tasks that you're doing, that's an area where you can look for Zapier to help.
Awesome. So we'd love to hear some examples of the shared Zaps that you've created. Maybe let's talk about accounting first.
Sure. So one shared Zap that I had shared out previously was one of the biggest pain points for us as accounting professionals, in case for all of you non-accountants to know, is 1099s at the end of the year. We all get them. Nobody likes them, right? And so in order for accounting professionals to actually prepare those, we need to get a completed Form W-9 from all of the vendors that we pay over $600 for service. And so working with our clients, we rely on them to actually get that documentation from the vendors that they're working with, and they oftentimes forget. So one Zap that I've built that's been really powerful is to create a trigger from QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online, when you create a vendor, has a little checkbox that you can check if you want to track that particular vendor for 1099 tracking. And so what the Zap does is when somebody adds a new vendor to QuickBooks Online and they check that box, it fires off an email with a blank W-9 attached and a link to a secure file storage area. So the person can fill it out, upload it, and you're no longer chasing people for information. Another way that I use Zapier as an accounting professional is to collect information from my clients. So I have a lot of automations related to getting the information that I need from my clients, whether it's asking them about their company and then having that information automatically entered into the different systems that I use in my practice, and also be able to create automations between clients' accounting systems, like intercompany allocations and things like that. So Zapier has been an absolutely powerful tool for me in that particular case.
Those are some great examples. What about an e-commerce app?
So the one I'm super proud of is there's lots and lots of apps out there that can help you get the income portion or the sales portion of what's happening in an e-commerce store into your accounting system. But where a lot of those applications kind of stop and I don't want to say fail, but they don't meet the bill, is bringing in the associated fees that are associated with those sales. So Zapier is able to do that because if you connect to the merchant service providers like Stripe or Square or PayPal, a lot of times they will actually, when a sale happens on their platform, will pull the fees into Zapier and that field and that amount is exposed. And so what I'm able to do is create Zaps that record that information and post it automatically into the accounting system so that that's not something that I have to do at the end of the period. It does it for me automatically.
That's awesome. And lastly, how about a Zap that automates communication?
Sure. So I have, as I mentioned before, the W9 Zap that I've created. That's definitely communicating, but also having things happen automatically in our Slack channels within our firm is really helpful, and also sending texts. So one Zap that I actually have, it's more of a reminder for me. I have one that's a reminder for me and one that's a reminder for my clients is quarterly estimated tax payments, right? So I have one that sends me a text to remind me things. To do things. And then I have another one that works with MailChimp that basically in January, April, June, and September, I use the schedule by Zapier trigger and a filter. It actually creates and deploys a MailChimp campaign that reminds my clients that they need to make their estimated tax payments.
Thank you so much for sharing those examples. So how has using shared Zaps helped your own business grow? I know you said that you've generated revenue by using Zapier and use it to promote your business as well. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Of course. So one of the best ways to drive business, to your business, to get business to come to your business is to show your expertise, to demonstrate your expertise, right? So by creating shared Zaps and sharing them with my community, they can actually go into the Zaps that I've created and see what my expertise, what my level of expertise is. And it also gives them an instant win, right? They can go in, they can connect their accounts. I've already brought value to our relationship. So absolutely, that's a great marketing strategy. The other way that it helps is it allows me to build a community around what I do, right? So as I'm sharing these automations and knowledge with my accounting community that have the same needs that I have, I'm building a relationship in that greater, and I'm also expanding, my presence in that community.
Definitely. So how do you know when to automate a process?
So when I'm thinking about automating a process, to identify the process on its own is I look at, is it repeatable? Does it happen a lot? And am I going to get a lot of bang for my buck, right? So is it something that usually when I'm looking at something that I'm doing the same steps every single time. So it's repeatable, it's consistent, it uses the same steps and the same applications. And so once I've kind of identified that I'm spending a lot of time doing these, these different tasks over and over again, then I kind of want to look and see if there's a way that I can automate that.
Definitely. And how do you identify Zaps that are worth sharing with others?
That's a great question. So I think about how many people are going to benefit from this workflow and how many ways can it be changed or modified to benefit somebody in a different way. So what kinds of use cases are there? So for example, with the W9 Collections app, there's a lot of different ways that you could use that shared Zap. It doesn't have to be a vendor. It could be a customer. So all you have to do is in that shared Zap, change the trigger, right, from adding a new vendor to adding a new customer, and then it sends an email, right? So you could change the email to be, thank you for your payment, or thank you, for doing business with us, whatever it is. So I do look at that. I look at how many people are going to benefit from me sharing this app, and in the marketing sense. And then as far as sharing those apps with, my customers, that's on an as needed basis, right?
Definitely. And so as your work as a consultant, do you typically build out Zaps on your account or on your client's account?
So it really depends. So it depends on whether or not I'm building the automation because that's the work that I'm doing to get, my job done, right? So if it's something internal in my own company that I'm doing to produce a product or a service for a particular customer, that's my Zap. And to me, that's proprietary, right? The automations that I set up to do my job are unique to me and I own those. So I keep those in my account. However, I have a lot of clients that reach out to me and ask me to build an automation for them. And so if that's the deliverable that I'm actually, providing through my service, then I want to build that in their account, right? Because that becomes their product. And so that's how I determine whether or not it's going to be in my account or in their account.
And when you're doing this work as a consultant, what Zapier plan are you using and why is it helpful?
So I use the Teams plan, and I use the Teams plan because it has the ability for me to invite my clients into the plan and then create a shared folder where we can share the automations and share accounts and collaborate together, which is really important.
And you mentioned the shared folders and the Teams plan. How do you use those shared folders?
Sure. So when I have a new client that I'm going to be working with to build a Zap, what I'll do is I'll invite them into the plan. I create the shared folder, right? And then I build the Zap in that shared folder. Okay. So the client can go in and they can connect their accounts in the Zap so that I don't need to know their login credentials. I'm not, they're not exposing that information to me, but then I can go in and I can create all of the, the detailed automations and, filters and, use the built-in tools and things to actually get the Zap to work. At that point, once I've built the Zap, they can actually make a copy of it out of the shared folder and into their own account if they want to. But most of my clients leave it in the shared folder in case something happens, like an API for one of the apps changes, and I need to go in and I need to figure out what's going on with that.
Awesome. And I've got just one more question to wrap this up. Do you have any fun Zaps that you've created?
I do. So one of my fun Zaps, and I've been doing this now, I've been doing more and more of these. I think I have a problem, is I found an awesome Zap on your blog, which was the trigger is scheduled by Zapier, right? And so the schedule is every Monday. I have every Monday at noon. It goes out to the Giphy website, and Giphy is on the Zapier platform, and it searches for a Monday Giphy. And then it posts it to my Slack channel automatically to my team, my random channel, to say, happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. So that's a really fun one. And I've now been creating different ones. Like I have now a cat bot that I actually taught my Zapier workshop students to do this during the workshop. And so now I have like a cat bot. I have a rainbow bot that are coming into my Slack channel. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing all of your awesome examples and how you're using Zap Sharing. Now that we have some examples of shared Zaps, I'm going to cover a bit more about how sharing works.
Thank you.
So sharing can be used across teams and organizations. Here are a few popular ways to do this. Once you create a Zap, you can share them across your organization to help increase efficiency by automating common workflows like adding new leads to a webinar and to your CRM, adding action items to your to-do list, collecting tax documents from vendors, and adding form responses to a spreadsheet. By creating Zaps for these common tasks, time recreating these workflows is saved and best practices are easily shared amongst coworkers and teams. And now I'll hand it back to Katie for our Q&A.
Okay, great. So it looks like we do have quite a bit of questions. Let's see here. Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions on setting up specific Zaps. And in this webinar that we are not showing that, but we have so many great webinars on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in looking to figure out how to just create a Zap or workflow, go to our YouTube channel and you'll see all of our past Zapier 101 videos, and they're pretty informative. So hopefully you can check those out. And let's see here. We have a question for you, Heather. How do you market your services using Zap Sharing? Do you have a predefined workflows or solutions, or do you charge by the hour?
So the Zap sharing that I do is more promotional. I share my Zaps. Typically, I share when I'm creating shared Zaps out on social media, I'll share them in a tweet. And usually I'm creating an automation and sharing it out to promote the services that I offer. Okay, does that make sense? So if I'm actually creating Zaps and promoting myself as a Zapier expert, because I'm in the accounting space, most of the referrals that I get and the people that are coming and asking, looking to work with me, are looking for help with their accounting processes and their business processes. That's how I've done that. I've also do have a resource page on my website and I actually haven't, I don't think I've put any Zaps there, shared Zaps there yet, but I really should because it's still fairly new, right? But I have shared, Zaps out on webinars that I've done where I've actually taught people how to use, a type of Zap and then how to create it. I'll actually share that Zap with them at the end of the webinar so that they can go in and use that particular automation that I've created.
Awesome. Okay, this one, I think maybe Heather, this might be for you. If not, maybe someone else can answer, but I have a new bookkeeper business freelancer. When should I start using Zapier?
Wow. So that's a great question. When you start to see that you're doing repetitive things over and over again that are super time consuming, it's time to consider Zapier. I would say that you could use Zapier right off the bat in your bookkeeping business. One of the things that we have to do as accounting professionals is we have to onboard our clients to a lot of different systems inside our own business, right? So we need to add them to a MailChimp list. We need to set up the file structure for them, whether we're using ShareFile or Google Drive or OneDrive. And Zapier can do all that for us. You create one Zap that basically you have a client maybe even fill out a form, a Google form. And when they complete that form, you can actually take the information from that Google form and create an entire file structure. You can add them to a MailChimp list. You can add them to your QuickBooks Online accountant account. There's all kinds of things that you can do right off the bat in your bookkeeping business. So it's just a matter of getting into Zapier, learning what it can do, and then thinking about where you're entering the same information in a bunch of different places, and then kind of going from there.
Great. So this one might also be a bit specific, but it says Heather is using Teams with her clients and the Zaps are in folders shared with them. How does task usage work for that? Whose account is charged for task usage?
So I can't answer that question because I believe that task usage is on my account. Because when I go into my task usage, manager, I don't know if that's the official name of it, I see those tasks against my account. I have unlimited tasks, so it hasn't been really needed for me to look at that. But I would see how that would be important. So maybe you guys can answer that. I think if I create the Zap in the shared folder, it's on my account. I think if the client creates the Zap and then I have access to it, it's on their account, but I'm honestly not sure.
Okay. I don't know if Lori, if you heard that or not, but we can always answer that offline too.
Yeah, sure. I think what I said is accurate.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't been paying a ton of attention to it because I have unlimited tasks.
That's okay. Okay, here's a question. If your customer leaves the Zap in the shared folder, does that mean it can run from there without being copied into their own account? And if so, do they need their own account?
So yes, they do need their own account. One of the things that I have learned about it is that when I invite them into my shared account, I'm not adding them as a user. I'm inviting them in as a guest, I guess. And they're logging in through their own account. So even if they have a standard plan, right, I can still build Zaps if I'm building the Zap from my account in their share folder that has additional features in it. So for example, you get paths when you move to that pro level. But if I'm building a Zap in the shared folder in my account and they have access to it, it will use the paths. If they copy that Zap and they put it in their own account, it's not going to run because they're only paying for the standard plan, which doesn't include those paths. So that is a consideration that you need, that you'll have when you're thinking about how you're going to work with your clients.
Great. Here's another one. How can someone become a certified Zapier expert?
So there is a wonderful resource to all Zapier users called Zapier University. And that is where you can learn about the Zapier Experts program. It's fantastic. There's videos and quizzes to help you kind of reinforce your knowledge. So that's where you would get started. And I think it's experts.zapier.com is where they find that.
I think
I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah,
if I
sure.
could. The experts program is actually currently closed to new applicants. They are revamping it, hopefully by the end of the year, but please don't quote me on that as to exactly when it's going to be reopening, but they're making some tweaks. We do have, if you want to sort of ramp up your Zapier knowledge, we do have a Zapier 101 University, which is available to anyone. It's not part of becoming an expert, but if you want to really ramp up your knowledge of Zapier, the Zapier 101 University is actually really awesome. If you want to be a certified expert, definitely stay tuned. The website is zapier.com/experts. And once we open that back up, we will be making all of the announcements, and we'll be very excited to have you join us.
Great. And that kind of goes into this next question that says, I am new and have no idea how to get started with Zapier. I want to figure out how to do this with my CRM. Do you have any suggestions? So that is Zapier 101 is a great option. And then we also, like I said earlier, we have our YouTube channel that has a ton of different videos and trainings. And especially on our website, if you go to zapier.com/apps, you can see all the different apps that we use, and you can actually click in and create your own workflows based on templates that have already been set up for you. There's also zapier.com/roles. I believe it's /roles, which shows you if you are in marketing or in accounting, all the different Zaps that people use. Pretty helpful. Okay, let's see here. You might have already answered this, but we might just reiterate. Can you share Zaps on other plans or only the team subscription? This one might be good for you, Lori.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on this one.
Okay.
So we're talking about two different things. You can share a Zap on any plan in that you can send a person a share link, and then they'll be able to build that same Zap on their account with their own information. On our teams and companies plan, we also have a way of creating shared folders where you can put your Zaps in those shared folders, and everyone on the team is going to be able to access that specific Zap and all of the data that went through that specific Zap. So two different things. So if you're just sharing a link to a Zap, you don't have to be on a specific plan. You can do that on any of our Zapier plans.
Okay. And this one, Lori, also might be for you. What is the difference between an API and a Zap?
Okay, well, that's a good one. So a Zap is the workflow. So the API is basically the guidebook or the rules of how we speak to everyone's app. So everyone's API is slightly different. How we speak to them, what kind of code we use when we speak to them, that's their API. The Zap is basically setting up the connector of what you want to do when we connect to that API. So you don't need to know their API, you don't need to know their code, you just need to say, hey, I want to trigger off a new row in Google Sheets and I want to send an email. And that's as much detail as you need to know, and throw in obviously who it's going to go to and what information gets sent, but you don't need to know the code, you don't need to know the API at that point.
Okay. Does the person you share the Zap with need to have a team account too to use the shared folders feature?
No.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You're yes and no. So that's what I was talking about before. If you're on a shared folder, then only the people in the team have access to that shared folder. If you're sharing a link to a Zap, fair game. Everyone can see it.
Great. Okay, let's see here. This one may be a little technical, but we'll see if anyone knows the answer. How are people dealing with unstructured data? For example, I'd like to pull the total due from a PDF invoice and put that in a spreadsheet. Does anybody know that answer?
You might want to try like one of the parser tools. I think like Parser, and there's 2 R's there, or Mail Parser IO might be able to extract that information. We have in our formatter tool, there's like a CSV extractor. So if you can get that information into a CSV, we could work with it that way. Yeah, I think for what you're looking for, a parser tool would probably be your best bet.
Okay, great. It looks like we're at time here. And a lot of people ask if the session will be recorded, and yes, it will. And we will send you out the link so you'll have all of this information. Also, if we didn't get to your question and answer it, if you go to zapier.com/support, you can get all of your questions answered, any technical questions. And again, look onto the website for any other resources or the YouTube channel, because there's a lot of great information there. All right, and with that, I want to thank Janan and Heather so much for a great webinar, and thank you everyone for joining us today.